Hey, how's everyone doing today? I want to give you guys a video of the Benchmade fact. This is actually not my knife. This is my father-in-law's knife. He and I, actually my family and I, we went up to Carmel by the sea, and they have Carmel Cutlery. It's a knife shop. Really cool shop, brick and mortar shop. The guy, he's super awesome. He's, really involved, really well known in the knife community, but he really liked this one, so I ended up, giving this to him as a gift, and he really enjoys it. Yeah, I haven't really carried it and used it too much, but I feel like I could kind of give you guys my 2 cents about it. Uh, First, right off the bat, this is the name of this is the Benchmade Fact, and it goes for about $195.50. So I say a little under $200. And what you get with that is you get a S30V blade steel, you get aluminum handles, and then you got stainless steel liners, and then of course you got the really popular access lock, and it's hard for me to do it one-handed, but yeah, I'll read you guys the specs real quick. The overall length is 8.72 inches, so this is a fairly long knife. If I could bring out the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 um, on screen, you could see it. I mean, the Para 2 is dwarfed by the fact. The blade length is 3.95 inches, almost 4 inches. And then the blade width is a very slender 0.75 inches. And then the blade thickness is 0.11 inches, relatively thin. I'll talk more about that. And then let me see. Yeah, so that's kind of the specs. Right off the bat, my first impressions is I'm not like a big Benchmade guy. Nothing wrong with the company. I think they make fantastic, awesome knives. The Axis lock is tried and true, but it's just it doesn't really speak to me. When I first started to buy and collect and use knives, Benchmade was one of the first companies that I got knives from. I believe it was the Mini Barrage, so it's like a assisted knife, and I really liked it. But then I quickly moved on to Spyderco. I feel like it's a little bit more fidget friendly, more fun to play with. Spyderco, I feel like the Axis lock, I know people will dispute this, but for me, the Axis lock is not like super like fun to play with. But I know other folks will disagree, and that's totally cool. Um, yeah, just like I said, my father-in-law, he likes big, slender knives. He's really into that. His job allows him to carry stuff like this, and so he loves this knife. For me, like I said, it's not my style, but I do want to point out a couple things. This is definitely designed to be like a penetrating, pokey stick, more than a slicer. I mean, don't get me wrong, it will cut. It will cut fairly well, but if you notice, the it's like a saber grind. So it's like a flat grind that goes almost to the half of the blade width, and then yeah, and then you got that long taper right there. So it comes to a very, very fine, pointy tip, super pointy. So just seeing this knife, it just screams like pokey stick. You know what I mean? I'm not a knife fighter in any sense of the word at all, but I could imagine that if you were to use this knife for that purpose, you would really have the advantage because it is a long, long knife. You got that long handle, and then you got that long kind of pointy blade. So I feel like you'll have the advantage of reach. Like I said, I'm not into knife fighting whatsoever, so I'm really just talking out of my head. But yeah, I have used this, and it does cut, fairly well. I mean, it's not gonna be like the greatest slicer of all time, For example, like the Para 3, man. The Para 3 is a fantastic slicer, but obviously it's because you got that a full flat grind. Look how small that Para 3 looks compared to the Fact. It's almost like the same. I mean, it barely is. Look at that. Anyways, um, you might see this knife and be like, it doesn't look very comfortable. And surprisingly, it is fairly comfortable. Even though you have a very narrow hand, I mean, a narrow handle. So you have a very narrow real estate. But because they did provide that kind of design where the first two or three fingers will kind of be contained in that first, I guess, choil, and then the last two fingers or your pinky will be kind of secured in that second choil. So, yeah, it is relatively comfortable. I wouldn't say that this is like the most comfortable knife I've ever held. I would imagine that if I use this for extended period of time, it'll start to become more uncomfortable. It is a very blocky handle, as you can see. Totally, it's like a flow through design. Really cool. You got these little windows. It's a very light knife. I mean, you get a lot of blade for the weight. I mean, it's very, very light. I don't have the weight on this knife, but I would imagine it's like 2 point something ounces. But yeah, this is really interesting knife. I mean, I personally wouldn't carry this one, but it's also because it has such a slender profile, it's very, very pocket friendly, and it does have that really deep carry pocket clip. So it'll ride all the way to the very top and it will bury that knife completely. And so you could, really just carry this on the down low. And because it is such a slender knife, it will sit very flush in the pocket. So you'll be able to get stuff in that same pocket if you carry like coins or whatnot. So I feel like carry wise, this is a fantastic carry profile. Yeah. So with that being said, if this is the knife, if this is the kind of knife that you're into, I would highly, highly recommend the Benchmade Fact. It is quite a intimidating looking knife. I mean, it just looks like a stabber. You know what I'm saying? Like it looks, like it's designed to do some damage for sure. But my father-in-law, he uses it as his everyday carry, and it works totally fine. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, one thing I gotta give props to the Axis lock because there was like no movement at all. It's just a rock solid lockup in every direction, and these are riding on phosphor bronze washers, so it's incredibly smooth, and it's very quiet. You don't get like a big click. You just get like a very subtle click. So here it goes. Yeah, you could barely hear that click. I mean, compared to like, like a paramilitary 2-year-old, it's a little bit more obvious, a little bit more noticeable, you know what I mean? But with the Fact, it's a very subtle, very kind of a quiet carry. And yeah, it's just so smooth. Yeah, it's a very interesting knife for sure, you know? So I'm going to give you guys a 360. Yeah, look at that aluminum handle. They've really machined this really well. So you get that traction, forward traction, and reverse traction as well. Everything is really flush. The steel liner is flush with the aluminum scales. Yeah, I love the black pocket clip, the black hardware. Just really, everything just matches. Yeah. Oh, also one thing I did want to mention is I really love how Benchmade did that machine grind on the flat, and then it looks like they stone washed the bevels and the taper. So you kind of have that two-tone finish, which I think it looks quite stunning. Look at that. Look at those grind lines. I personally love grind lines. I feel it really gives the blade like character. Um, And I did sharpen this knife for my father-in-law, and it sharpens fairly well. S30V, I know Benchmade, they really dialed in their, how they deal with their S30V. So it sharpened really well. Keeps it real. It's a very sharp, sharp edge, very pointy edge, like I mentioned. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this knife. With that being said, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.